I am Don Tess, better known as the Don of Beer.
And I'm Em Sutter, better known as Pints and Panels.
Welcome to episode 57 of the All About Beer podcast. Every 2 weeks, we talk with leading experts and take a deep dive into one topic in beer. This week on the show, we're going to talk about chocolate in beer. But first, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And if you're feeling generous, please visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. So, Em, do you
Yes.
like chocolate? You know, you're one of those
Of
weirdos
course
who
I
like
like chocolate.
Oh, that's so unusual.
Yeah, I know. I actually really like white chocolate, so I'm excited to ask about that.
White chocolate's not chocolate, as
Well,
far
we'll
as I'm
find
told. But we'll
out.
find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you like it in beer?
I do like it in beer. I like it. Chocolate stouts are good. I like it in darker beers. I know it's used in many different styles, and I'm excited that we have um, a guest who's really known for using chocolate in their beers. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk to a chocolate maker as well. So
Yeah, this is going to be great because, as you know, I love nerding out on this sort of stuff.
yes, you do.
But first, if you would like to help support the All About Beer podcast, please reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. Speaking of supporting the show, here is a word from our sponsors.
We've participated at FOBAB since the very beginning of our brewery, which was 2012.
John Barley, Malt Brewing, 4-time FOBAB medalist.
This event gives brewers from across the world a chance to come here and compete with one-of-a-kind beers, some of the best offerings from breweries. These are beers that the brewers themselves are most excited about. If you're serious about beer, this is an event that you should not miss. For a full list of brewers and tickets, check out fobab.com, FOBAB.com. We'll see you at FOBAB November 22nd and 23rd in Chicago.
Welcome to Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They're all about lager, rooted in German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinctive recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high-gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol-free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and know more about it on Instagram at Estrella Galicia, USA.
Paul Picton is a mechanical engineer who changed careers in 2013 to become a chocolate maker. Along with his wife Marlene and their sons Ben and Scott, they own and operate the Maverick Chocolate Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. Their chocolate has received numerous national and international awards, including 9 Good Food Awards. Maverick Chocolate employs 12 people. Paul previously was the sales director for MTU Aero Engineers, a division of Mercedes-Benz. Paul spent 7 years at Delta Airlines and 3 years in GE Aircraft Engines. Paul mentors numerous food-based entrepreneurs in Cincinnati. He is active in his neighborhood community of Newport, Kentucky. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start with Chocolate 101. What is chocolate? Like, what plant is it made from and how is it made?
So chocolate we think of is basically a blend of cocoa beans and sugar. That's at its primary basis. Everything that's chocolate sort of starts there and then can morph into a lot of different things, from milk chocolate to dark chocolate to chocolate chip cookies, chocolate ice cream, chocolate bars.
So chocolate beer.
Delicious.
And chocolate beer.
Chocolate beer.
Yes. Yes. But everything starts with basically cocoa beans, which grow on cocoa pods, which grow on the little cacao tree that typically grows around the equator. So it's very much a tropical plant. The fruit inside is very tropical tasting. You would not think that was going to turn into chocolate if you roasted it and ground it up a little bit and added some sugar. So it's a very interesting and fun kind of plant.
Okay. So you're sort of touched on it. Like, what is, because I hear these terms kind of bandied about, but what is the difference between cacao, cocoa, and chocolate? I do think I understand the last one now. It's the addition of sugar, but maybe what's the difference between cacao and cocoa?
Those just different ways of saying it. It's like a regionalism, potato kind of thing.
Oh,
There is
okay.
no there's no real definition or, preferred usage typically. So cacao is typically the word that, I would use to describe, the beans, the trees before they are turned into chocolate.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So what makes like what's the difference between good chocolate and like great chocolate? Like what do you need to do to get to that like upper echelon of great chocolate?
It really starts with great cocoa beans. So, like all food, there's a whole wide range, and cacao is grown around the world, around the equator, and some of the farms are just, very low performing. There's a lot of complex issues on, how well the beans are grown, if they're hybrids or clones, and so really comes down to you have to have really, really high quality cocoa beans in order to make really, really good chocolate bars. And typically that means you're looking for what we call fine flavor cacao, heirloom quality cacao. So these are usually farms that have been around for many generations, typically in places like South America, some in Vietnam, and so it's really trying to find those high quality cocoa beans, basically very clean, pure strains. The vast majority of the cocoa beans that are grown in the world come out of West Africa, and almost all of those are hybrids. So some type of genetic mutations has gone on to try to make them more drought resistant, things like that. And unfortunately, flavor is the first thing that goes when you start to do that kind of thing. So trying to find
Huh.
those farms that are still growing things naturally the way they have been for, thousands of years, is what's going to produce the best chocolate. And
It
the challenge is that's really hard to find.
it almost sounds like you're describing like going to a grocery store and buying a tomato that's been kind of like genetically modified versus going to the local farmer's market at like peak season or growing your own tomato. Like I didn't even think of chocolate as something that really should be a like the idea. That's mind blowing to me
Yeah.
how much of an agricultural like product it is and how special it needs to be to make that kind of good chocolate versus, no disrespect to the chocolate bar in the grocery store. Um, but no to that.
Right. And, you know, food is complex in all levels. Beer is no different. Where you get the ingredients, the quality of the ingredients, makes a difference in the final product. Processing plays a big role as well. There's a lot of different ways to make chocolate. And so some of those are, I'd call them more intrusive, where take the cocoa beans, they press them to extract all the cocoa butter out, because it's actually worth more than chocolate. It's sold off to cosmetic companies, things like that.
Oh.
And so now you're re-emulsifying the cocoa powder with artificial fats, partially hydrogenated palm kernel oil, things like that. The amount of cocoa that you put into the bar makes a difference. The FDA does have some bottom threshold. So to be considered milk chocolate in America, you have to have only 11% chocolate, 12% milk, and the rest is whatever you want. There's percentages allowed for paraffin, so you can put wax
Oh.
in to make it seem
Oh
shiny and
no.
give it some snap. And so
Yes.
there's a whole range of how you make good chocolate. So, how you make any kind of chocolate. So, typically in these kinds of things, less is more. And so, the way we make our chocolate is two ingredients: organic cocoa beans and organic sugar. And so, that's for us, we found to be, ideal recipe. I do make some milk chocolate where I will add some milk powder in, but I start with a 60% dark chocolate, then add milk powder into it. So there's a lot of ways I said that you can make chocolate, but typically you will find that the best chocolate, those that get written up well in reviews or do well at the awards ceremonies around the world are usually two typically two ingredient chocolate bars.
I see. Um, you're kind of talking about how you make, chocolate and quality chocolate. Do you think about it differently if you're making either chocolate or cacao for use in brewing? Is that a different application, I guess? Do you roast it differently or anything different?
Um, yes and no. So in most of the cases, the brewers that I've worked with have basically are looking at purchasing cacao and the husks. And so we call the whole bean the cocoa bean, and the bean has a little husk, a little shell on the outside that is separated as part of the process. And then what's left on the inside, we call the cocoa nibs. They're called nibs because the beans just sort of crumble and crush. They're quite brittle. And so you have two component parts, which is, as I said, the husk and then the nibs. And so that's what breweries are typically using to make a chocolate beer. I only know of one company here in Cincinnati that I worked with that tried to actually use finished chocolate, and it just gummed up the whole machine
Oh,
because the cocoa butter separates so much quicker. And so in most
Oh,
cases,
yeah.
what we're looking at is using the husk, so the shell, as part of the boil process with the other grains. It adds a lot of color, not so much of the flavor, but it adds a lot of color. And so that gets mixed in during that part. And then at the ferment stage, a day or two before it's finished, they will then, that's when we'll add the cocoa nibs. And that gives it that
oh,
huge punch of chocolate flavor. So it's how much and how long is up to the brewer of what they're looking for, but that's really the kind of where we're seeing it being introduced into the process. And so I think there's a couple of guys here who are doing like smaller batches, like 5 barrel systems, and they're probably putting in about 20 pounds of cocoa nibs in at the ferment stage.
Mm.
oh, this is okay. This, I've heard of breweries like just going to the grocery store and buying cocoa powder and like dumping it into their beers. How is cocoa powder made? And then is that good or a good or bad way to add chocolate to a beer?
So cocoa powder is roughly 50% of a cocoa bean. If you were to take a cocoa bean and mechanically press it, the oil that you would get out, like all seeds have oils, we call cocoa butter. The remaining part is what we call cocoa powder.
Hmm.
So those are the two ingredients, and they're roughly 50-50 in a cocoa bean. And so, as I'd mentioned, cocoa butter is actually worth more than chocolate. That's how it's priced in the marketplace. And so companies will press beans all the time to get the cocoa butter out, and there's less of a demand for cocoa powder. And so cocoa powder is usually much more available. And so its big difference is it does not have any of the cocoa butter in, or very little, which is probably a reasonable way to add it into the beer. The challenge is that because it's been pressed, that pressing is ultra high temperature. They take these huge hydraulic machines, press the beans, to extract everything out, and the temperatures are extremely hot. And what that does is sort of ruins any kind of unique flavors that you might have in the cocoa beans. So if you
Uh,
think of a coffee kind of scenario where you've got light, medium, dark roasts, we're doing the same kind of thing with cocoa beans, deshelling them, and then brewers are able to add them in right at that point. So all the unique flavors are still in the bean. So if it's sort of a fruity bean, you will get those fruit notes. If it has a citrus, note to it, you will get that sort of bite on the end of it. And so you're getting a broader flavor profile. Cocoa powder is just going to be cocoa powder. and it'll make it to taste chocolatey, but there's very little nuance in
Ah.
cocoa powder.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I've ever tasted some of these flavors you've described in chocolate. I think that's
You need
amazing.
to eat better chocolate.
I need to eat better chocolate. Yeah, with less paraffin in it, apparently.
Yeah, I know. Jeez.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
there's all kinds of things that are allowed into chocolate, and of course almost all food source. So it's not unique to chocolate, but that's, I think, the big thing that why we've been pretty successful working with the brewers was that we can provide a lot of those different flavors. I have beans from probably 8 different farms from around the world at any given time that we use to make into chocolate. And so, working with the local brewers, they're able to come in, try the different cocoa nibs, try chocolate made with those nibs, because for most
Oh,
people, that's an easier way to understand the flavor. And then they can be like, oh, okay, I want this kind of a flavor note in the beer that I'm hoping for. And so we can provide them a little more customized flavor profile to work with the kind of beer that they're looking at.
oh, I love this.
that's so cool.
I guess I
I
need to come visit your shop.
I know. All right. Well, I have to ask because I really like white chocolate, which my husband says is not actually chocolate. Which he's probably right, but I'm not sure. Like, you can't brew with white chocolate though, right? Because that's just bad.
Right. So
My knowledge of, I
I'll
just know I want to eat it all the time. It's delicious.
I'll tell you. Here's the story of white chocolate. So white chocolate in its real form, if you will, is made with cocoa butter. It's 36% cocoa butter, then milk powder and sugar. So that's real white chocolate. Almost nobody makes real white chocolate because cocoa butter is worth so much more being sold off to cosmetic companies, make suntan lotion, those kinds of things. And so it has a huge industrial demand outside of making it for chocolate. The way cocoa beans are priced at the commodity level, cocoa butter is priced as a multiple of the price of cocoa beans. So if cocoa beans are 500, well, right now they're about $8,000 a ton. They would just add a 4x multiplier on that, and that's the price of cocoa butter. And so
Oof.
it's very, very expensive. And so most places who make white chocolate, quote unquote, is not actually white chocolate. They use words
Oh,
like white chocolatey, white compound, words to that effect. The FDA
oh,
has pretty strict guidelines of this is, the minimum thresholds of what has to be in there. And most of the companies will not make it because it costs significantly more to produce than a dark chocolate bar or a milk chocolate bar. But the
oh,
expectation in America is that one chocolate bar is the same as the next and they should all be the same price. So if you go to the convenience store or the grocery store and you're like, oh, do I want this bar white chocolate? Do I want this bar dark chocolate? They make them the same price point because they don't want price to be a deciding factor. So they typically lessen the ingredients, all that kind of stuff. So you get typically a white chocolate is palm kernel oil with whey powder, sugar,
Ugh.
flavoring, and wax. And so
You're killing me.
so
I've never ate white
so
chocolate
right.
again.
So you got to go find the real stuff, which is hard to find. I make that. I
Oh,
mean, for us, that's an important thing of what we do. We make it just by itself. We also make it as a lemon lavender, and we're just coming out
Ooh,
with the Christmas one, which is a gingerbread white chocolate. So
I will be
oh,
ordering from your website, sir.
well, thank you. So there's white chocolate is like a base. You can do all kinds of things with it. It holds flavor well. It holds color well. For Valentine's Day a couple of years ago, we made a raspberry white and
Ooh,
turned out to
yes.
be this lovely pink fuchsia color. Um, so that's white chocolate. There is no reason you would never want to try to do something like that probably in chocolate
Hmm.
because the cocoa butter is just going to separate out of there. And, that's a sticky fat and it's just going to gum up all the machines. So you've got a big cleaning job ahead of you if you decide to try and put white chocolate in. And the white chocolate flavor that people are thinking about is is cocoa butter, and I'm not sure, it's not gonna come across the same way, because it's not going to really be imparted into the beer, because it's just going to literally float on the top. And so it's so white chocolate in beer is,
it's a no-go.
At least I wouldn't recommend it. Now there's probably a brewer who's figured out how to do it, but I couldn't comment on that side of it.
Foam caps are very big in beer right now. So maybe instead of having a foam cap, you could have a cocoa
Ew,
butter
that's
cap.
disgusting, Don. No.
You were kind of talking about how you make like basically you make cocoa custom for brewers. Do you basically make it? You give it to them, and they're good to go? Because I understand there's this concept of allowing cacao after it's been roasted that it needs to rest. Do you rest that, or what is resting? What does it do? And then do brewers need to be aware of resting, or can they just take your cocoa and throw it in and use it as you suggest?
I'm not sure what resting is in that. That sounds sort of like voodoo science to me.
Oh, okay, okay.
But because in most cases, I'm working with the breweries in that I'm roasting the beans like that day or the day before, deshelling them, putting them into, clean, sanitized 5-gallon buckets and delivering them as they need them. The longer they sit, the more they oxidize, the more they lose their flavor. So you
just
want
like malts.
Yeah, you basically want to use these, as soon as possible. So we will often deliver, the husks at a different time than the nibs, and the nibs are the critical part. The husk, because it's mostly done for color at the brewing stage, is not as critical as getting the nibs for the flavor at the ferment. So we will often deliver them at different times, just because those processes are at different times. So that way they can get them as fresh as possible.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, if you're buying something that's been sitting on a shelf for a year, it's certainly has lost most of its potential.
Just like old beer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's right. I mean, it's food, and fresh almost always is better, unless it's some kind of cheese or cognac. So.
Or whiskey.
Or whiskey, yes.
What do you wish consumers understood about quality chocolate?
I think how difficult it is to actually produce. I compare ourselves often to coffee roasters because we use similar equipment, but coffee roasting is the first and only step in for coffee. It's first step of 12 for us. So it takes us 6 weeks to make one batch of chocolate.
Wow.
And so it's a super complicated process, subject to, temperature variations, humidity variations, variations in ingredients. And so it's a very hands-on process to sort of tweak the various steps along the way. So, and most people don't have any idea how chocolate is made. Big reason is, until recently, there were no craft chocolate makers in America. The first ones only started in 2006. And so we're a brand new industry, really. Prior to 2006, the only way to get chocolate in America was to buy big pre-made blocks from, the big chocolate companies, the Hershey's, Blomers, Barry Callebaut's of the world. People just weren't making chocolate, at that craft scale until then. And so most people have not had a chance to go and visit a chocolate factory to see how chocolate is actually made. And so it's very interesting. I find it quite fascinating. And I've been doing it 10 years now, and I still feel like I've got, so much more to learn.
Just like brewing, actually. The good brewers also say the same thing.
Absolutely right. And I think, and again, we go back to, these are food products that a slight variation one way or another can make a big difference. And so, you really have to have your A game on in order to make really good chocolate, or really good beer. So yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Let's end this interview with if you could please just tell me one fun fact about chocolate.
So the, to me, what's the most, fun was that, chocolate is often viewed as aphrodisiac. And so if you ever want to be in the mood or have someone in the mood, providing them a little bit of good dark chocolate is the path to success.
All right, I love it. Paul, can you share your social media handles so people can see what you're up to and hopefully visit your store when they're next in Cincinnati?
Yeah, absolutely. We can be found at maverickchocolate.com. We're also on Facebook at Maverick Chocolate and on Instagram as Maverick Choco.
Maverick Choco. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Paul, and thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. I always like to talk to beer people. They're a fun crowd.
Uh,
Thanks, Paul. Cheers.
All
cheers.
right. Cheers.
We've participated at FOBAB since the very beginning of our brewery, which was 2012.
John Barley, Solomouth Brewing, 4-time FOBAB medalist.
This event gives brewers from across the world a chance to come here and compete with one-of-a-kind beers, some of the best offerings from breweries. These are beers that the brewers themselves are most excited about. If you're serious about beer, this is an event that you should not miss. For a full list of brewers and tickets, check out fobab.com, FOBAB.com. We'll see you at FOBAB November 22nd and 23rd in Chicago.
For all the beer lovers out there, Estrella Galicia offers an immersive experience dedicated to the world of beer in its museum, Mega, Mundo Estrella Galicia, right in the heart of its brewery in La Coruña, Spain. So what makes Mega stand out? It's the only beer museum in Europe located within a functioning brewery and offers visitors a personalized experience. As you explore, you can interact with different elements and access information that matches your own interests. Whether you're a history buff, a brewing geek, or just curious about the process, Mega tailors the experience to you. One of the coolest aspects of Mega is its origin story. The museum was conceived to encapsulate the old brew house, which was operational from 1972 to 2012. So while you're walking through Mega, you're not just in a museum, you're stepping into a piece of brewing history. Learn more about it on Instagram at Mundo Estrella Galicia.
Kelly Montgomery has been brewing beer for 28 years, beginning as a hobby while in college at Ohio State. In Kelly's 7 years as a professional brewer, he has won 3 Brewery of the Year awards at the Great American Beer Festival. What? Holy cow. With 2 different breweries. That's crazy. So he's done that in 2018, 2019, and 2023. Most recently, he headed up a team that won Grandmaster Champion, the top award at the U.S. Open Beer Championships. Kelly is the current co-owner and head brewer at Third Eye Brewing Company and was previously head brewer at Brink Brewing Company. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I've been a longtime fan, so it's a lot of fun to finally actually be on the show.
Oh,
Awesome. Thank you. It's
shucks.
always good to know that we have listeners. I was very excited to have you on the show because at the Great American Beer Festival a couple weeks ago, I tried 2 of your chocolate beers. The first one I tried was Dark Aura, and I was so blown away by how amazing the chocolate flavor was in it that I went back and had double Astra, and again, blown away. So the first one wasn't luck. There's 2 of them. I know you know how to brew with chocolate, so I want to know how you do it. And I'm just going to ask you that first open-ended question. How do you make such amazing chocolate beer?
Yeah, I think that it all starts with some really high quality cocoa nibs. We generally get them, they were just recently roasted within, a few weeks. We give them a few time. It's almost like coffee. Once you have it roasted, you don't want to use it right away. You want to give it, some time, but we'll use it super fresh and some super high quality ingredients. So I think that's, the biggest key.
Ah, um, conversely, when I have a lot of chocolate beers, they sometimes taste chalky or syrupy. Do you know why that is? I mean, I know your beers don't taste that way, but do you know why it is and how you avoid it?
Yeah, we don't use any artificial chocolates. We don't use any flavorings, chocolate flavorings or anything like that. We try to build the chocolate flavor from the cocoa nibs and then ultimately the grain bill of the recipe. Um, and I think choosing the right way to put together that grain bill, because cocoa nibs can be quite bitter and strong. So I think the recipe plays a big part of it, building that so that it actually tastes like chocolate.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Can
speaking
you?
of the recipe, actually,
Yeah.
when in the process do you add like the cocoa nibs
We
for
we
I
will,
have no idea where you would add chocolate actually.
yeah. So we will add the the bulk of the cocoa nibs. We will add in the bright tank.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. So it's like the
once
end.
Yeah, once we transfer from the fermenter to the bright, those cocoa nibs will already be in the bright tank when the beer
Oh,
hits it.
but you said bulk of. So do you add some elsewhere as well?
We also use husk, chocolate husk, and then
Oh,
won't be a whole lot. We'll add some of those in the whirlpool of the boil, and that just starts to build some of this chocolate flavor. So it's more of a kind of a 1-2 punch with some husk in the boil or whirlpool, very end of the boil, and then we'll add the actual cocoa nibs in the bright tank.
yeah. You're sort of hinting at it, like you're using cocoa nibs and the husk that you're talking about, and you're trying to mimic chocolate. So what are the extra things that you're doing to take that cocoa
Yeah,
that is
so
different, and then yeah, how do you mimic the chocolate?
sure. So we noticed that when we just used the cocoa nibs without any, recipe changes, it came out kind of bitter, astringent, um, and to kind of avoid that in the recipe, if you taste chocolate or milk chocolate, it always has, kind of creamy, vanilla,
Yeah.
sweet. Um, so when we're building the recipe, we want to drop down whatever hop bitterness level that we're normally going to use. So if we're shooting for 40 IBUs, we might set the recipe at only 10 or 15. We're going to pick up a ton of bitterness from the chocolate. So
Hmm.
Right.
that's the first thing we do is cut down the bitterness in the recipe and let the chocolate um give you some bitterness, because if you don't, then you kind of overshoot that bitterness and it gets a little too much or more than you intended.
And then you kind of hinted at vanilla. Do you add vanilla?
Yeah, so to kind of build that chocolate flavor, I think we used vanilla beans and we used lactose.
Ah,
I was gonna ask about the lactose.
yeah. I love this. Okay.
Yeah, so for all you lactose intolerance people, we're sorry, but yeah, we to get that flavor, that milk sugar and that vanilla and the cocoa, that really gives you the chocolate flavor that we're looking for.
Right, because that is in fact the difference between cocoa and chocolate is the addition of some sweeteners um and vanilla, I think. So I think you're making chocolate out of cocoa through the brewing process, effectively.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
And then I think another key part of it is when you think of chocolate, you're always kind of thinking of thick or luscious or just, almost syrup or, just something thicker. So we also use some maltodextrin,
Hmm.
which leaves a lot of unfermentables. It gives you that
Okay.
almost chocolate body to the beer. So I think the maltodextrin, the vanilla, lactose, and the cocoa nibs are really the key to getting it right.
Right.
What about, yeah, oh,
Yeah,
go
go.
ahead, Don.
No,
No,
no, you
no,
go ahead.
Don,
I've been
no.
dominating. You
Yeah.
go.
Um, How do you think about balancing chocolate with the other, like when if the yeast
There
is
was
going to
peanut
give
butter
up
in one of mine. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only had your pumpkin stout, by the way, is unbelievable. Side note, no, we're not talking about pumpkin, but it's really good. I had it at JBF.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate it. Yeah, I think that was a winner last year's GABF.
it's excellent. But like, so yeah, if you're brewing chocolate with peanut butter, let's say, how are you thinking about balancing those flavors?
So yeah, for that we like to use, at least for our dark aura, we like to be kind of peanut butter heavy, give the people what they want, so to speak. Um, I mean, we use massive amounts of, it's kind of a blend of the peanut butter flour and then plus some extract to help out with the aroma.
Hmm.
But we will blend in lots and lots of peanut butter flour and a little bit of extract into the bright tank. And chocolate and peanut butter, they just go so great together.
Yes, they do.
They
I can
really
confirm.
do. What other kinds of chocolate beers do you guys make?
Um,
Is this
I
like a
would,
thing for you?
yeah, no, this
Oh,
one
okay.
we're brewing these all the time, which really surprised. I mean, these two beers are probably the two most expensive beers we brew. They're not cheap to make, and
Mm.
for the consumer, they're pretty expensive beers. So it kind of surprised me. It kind of started off as a once a year beer, but it's turned in. I feel like I'm brewing it every couple months, so we usually always have it. It's a popular beer for us, and then we also have some barrel aging versions that'll be coming out this winter, which we've kind of dabbled in with the past, but I think this year um, we're going to have a bunch of different variants and a lot more barrels that we had to work with this year. So
Hmm.
we're
Have you
looking.
tried making like a a chocolate beer like with different types? I know you use the cocoa nibs, but if you're like building a recipe, like I want this to taste um like dark chocolate. I want this to, taste like white chocolate or one beer that's, I don't know. Like, I mean, is that something you're thinking about?
I think we're more along the lines of thinking about maybe some other adjuncts that
Hmm.
we could do. Thinking about kind of some hand toasted organic coconut
Oh,
added in. I think that would probably be the next thing that we'd be working on.
How
We
long
have
does
a
does anybody know how long it'll take for me to immigrate to the United States so I can move to Cincinnati? Um, so I think the obvious use of chocolate is in a stout, which is the two beers that I had at your place. Have you used chocolate in other beers? Does that work?
Yeah, it works. Um, I think the one nice thing about the chocolate is you can use your favorite base stout recipe and basically add some component of the maltodextrin, the lactose, vanilla, and the cocoa nibs. And that kind of process seems to work well with just about any base, whatever your favorite base stout recipe is. Um, so I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but
Oh, anything other than a stout though?
anything other than a stout, what else have we done? We have done, great question. We did it in a lighter style beer once, and
Yeah,
that
I'm wondering. And that worked?
it did work. It was almost more, it's not really an official BJCP style, but I guess we would kind of call it like a milkshake blonde, where it's just more of a
hmm.
Huh?
base ale recipe where you use a lot of oats that would have the lactose and vanilla, and you can put a much smaller quantity of the cocoa nibs in, and it's actually rather nice too.
And it didn't change the color, like it still kind of came out blonde.
Yeah, it still came out
Oh,
blonde. You get a slight color change, but it's still in that it doesn't move to amber or anything. It's still in that light. Doesn't look any darker than a West Coast IPA or old school West Coast IPA.
Okay, cool. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, last question, what advice would you give to professional or home brewers to improve your chocolate beer since I feel like you got this on lock, man.
Yeah. You could write a book.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some of that we've used other cocoa nibs from, other manufacturers, and we have a local cocoa nib company called Maverick Chocolate that's local to Cincinnati. And I think that's key to part of our success. I've used a lot of other different cocoa nibs from other places, and they don't have that aroma. And they just don't have that deep, rich flavor. Um, so I think you really have to try to maybe poke around a little bit and try to find some high quality cocoa nibs. They're not cheap. I think we're 28 bucks a pound or something
Hmm.
on what we're getting, but they're so much better than anything else we found. So
How
I would,
how many pounds per batch, if you don't mind me asking?
we use on a 30 barrel batch, we use about 60 pounds.
Woof.
Okay. I understand your price point now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Between the vanilla beans and
Oh yeah, and vanilla
Yeah.
too.
We
Everyone
did
should
an
listen. We did an
yeah.
episode on vanilla. You can learn about vanilla. And
And
vanilla
one of the
is,
things he said is that the good chocolate always has some vanilla in it. So
yeah.
yeah.
so, but that would be, I think the best advice I could get would be try to find the highest quality the cocoa nibs that you can get, and then if you can find a roaster that'll roast it a few weeks before you're going to use it, I think that helps. I think a lot of the cocoa nibs out there, they could have been on the shelf for 6 months, a year, and you're just kind of
Mm.
losing some of that oomph. So getting some fresh cocoa nibs a few weeks after they've been roasted, I think is key.
Cool.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Kelly. Can you share your social media handles so that people can, see when the next batch of your chocolate beer is coming out and everything, and the pumpkin beer that Em loved, and see everything
That
else that you're up
damn
to?
pumpkin beer is so good.
Yeah, you can find kind of on our brewing news. We have our Third Eye Brewing Co. .com on our website, and on Facebook. You can find us just at Third Eye Brewing.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for your time, Kelly. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
really,
wonderful to be on the show.
we
yeah, I
really
need a
appreciate
beer.
it. I know. Now I want some chocolate. My mom just came back from Switzerland, so
Oh, there you
I'm gonna eat the chocolate she brought me.
go. Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks for
Kelly.
having me.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So Em, what did
Yes.
you think of what did you think about that?
I don't know how I feel about white chocolate now.
You're
Ooh,
either
it
gonna
kind
have
of
to give it up or you're gonna have to
I don't
like
like that
work
chocolate's
harder
made
to
of
make more money.
I don't like that chocolate's made of wax too. It's stressing me out.
I learned that
Um,
yeah, the butter is worth more than, because they put it in cosmetics. So now
yeah,
instead of
I
going to
knew
the
that.
cosmetic
Yeah.
store, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store and rub chocolate on my face.
Yeah. It's just so interesting how chocolate is used in brewing and how if you use certain things it works. And the fact that like you put chocolate in the bright also is interesting to me.
Yeah,
That like you wouldn't put it earlier, but I don't, yeah, that's
yeah.
wild to me.
I also, it's a good reminder with good chocolate, sort of how craft beer um, re reintroduced people to the idea that, beer is a craft and chocolate is a
Mm,
craft. We seem to have
yeah.
lost sight of that. And I like that, it's an agricultural product. People, quality matters and freshness matters and how you handle it matters. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's it's and when you have a good chocolate bar or a good chocolate beer and
Yeah.
you know it, you can really thank multiple people that the brewer, the chocolatier, the farmer.
The farmer. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So please, everybody, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And please visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. If you have questions for the experts, please email podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting this show through advertising. Em, how can people reach out to you?
I am at Pints and Panels across all social media, and my website is www.pintsandpanels.com. What about you, Don?
I am at the Dawn of Beer on X, Threads, and Instagram, and people can drop me an email at don@thedawnofbeer.com. If you enjoy this show, please share it with your friends. Give us a review. It really helps with the algorithm to show this show to more people. Please post about us on social media, and please help us spread the word of good beer. Here's a final word from our sponsor.
We've participated at FOBAB since the very beginning of our brewery, which was 2012.
John Barley, Salamouth Brewing, 4-time FOBAB medalist.
This event gives brewers from across the world a chance to come here and compete with one-of-a-kind beers, some of the best offerings from breweries. These are beers that the brewers themselves are most excited about. If you're serious about beer, this is an event that you should not miss. For a full list of brewers and tickets, check out fobab.com, FOBAB.com. We'll see you at FOBAB November 22nd and 23rd in Chicago.
At Mega, the Estrella Galicia Museum, the tasting experience and the beer pairing are the highlight, offering an opportunity to explore a variety of beers from the Estrella Galicia portfolio. Mega is a must-visit for anyone interested in beer, history, or Galician culture. It's a place where you can not only learn about the science and craft of brewing, but also immerse yourself in the heritage of Estrella Galicia, Spain's most beloved beer brands. So, whether you're a beer aficionado or just curious about the process behind your favorite drink, if you're planning a trip to Spain, I recommend not missing the chance to visit Mega and discover the world of Estrella Galicia. It's a celebration of the art of brewing that's both informative and enjoyable. Learn more about it on Instagram at Mundo Estrella Galicia.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the newsletter and social media. Cheers!
Cheers, everyone.